or tell them we don't have any money, which we know and they know is a lie. Brush our teeth before we go to sleep or just fall into bed exhausted. Actually, that one is pretty straightforward. We should probably always brush our teeth. And that's just the little daily choices, right? Then there's the bigger ones. Take the job, don't take the job. Make the trip to the family wedding or evaluate the risks and the money and just send a card. Retire now or wait and see what the markets do. Stay where you live or uproot your life and move. Offer your adult child or your aging parent that advice that's just on the tip of your tongue. Or keep quiet, let it go. Sometimes I wish life were more black and white. And then I remember the danger and the damage that black and white thinking has inflicted on the world and our people. In our Old Testament lesson this morning from Deuteronomy, Moses presents the people of Israel with a choice. They have been wandering in the desert for 40 years, and finally, they are just about to enter the promised land. But before they do, Moses has one last sermon. As you enter this new land, Moses says, think carefully when you make decisions, because things will go one of two ways. One, obey God's commandments, and you will live and prosper. Or two, stray from God's law, bow down to other gods, and you will face hardship and death. Black or white, A or B, two choices, plain and simple. It's a great rhetorical strategy, isn't it? And it's a powerful sermon ending, as Moses and countless prosperity gospel televangelists have learned through the years. But that's not how real life works, is it? We don't live in a world that is black and white. Every now and then, yes, we make a choice between something that is clearly right and something that is clearly wrong. But most of the time, things are much more complicated. More often than not, we are choosing not between black and white, but among endless shades of gray. We live most of our lives in that space in between right and wrong. In our gospel reading last week, Jesus proclaimed that he has come not to abolish or change the teachings of Moses, but to fulfill them. And this morning, he takes up a few of those teachings to show us just what that looks like. Jesus takes Moses's ultimate ethical and existential question, choose life or death, good or evil. He opens up all that space between A and B. In a changing and complex world, Jesus says there are infinite shades of gray between life and death, between murder and not murder, between adultery and not adultery. For example, Jesus teaches, you have heard that it was said, do not murder. Great. One of the 10 commandments, don't murder. Check. Got it. Except that there's a lot of space between murder and not murder. According to Jesus, the commandment, do not murder, also means do not lash out in anger. Do not call names or hurl insults. Do not hold grudges or harbor resentments. Do not call another human being worthless. Do not do anything that violates the sacredness of another person created in the image of God. Likewise, Jesus says, do not commit adultery. But even more than that, do not look at or speak to someone in a way that reduces them to an object of desire. Do not violate the sacred covenant of consensual, joyful sexual relationship. Do not use the gift of human sexuality to do harm. I find this part of Jesus' teaching actually incredibly refreshing, because it places the responsibility for things like rape, abuse, sexual misconduct squarely on the perpetrator, on the person doing the abusing, the lusting after, the sexualizing, the lewd comments, the catcalls. Notice that Jesus never asks, well, what was she wearing? Jesus wants to paint our black and white thinking with an entirely new color palette, with shades of gray, yes, and even red, blue, green, and yellow. Jesus is teaching us that the choices we make are so much more than this or that, all the way right or all the way wrong. The commandment, do not murder, that encompasses the whole realm of human interactions. The commandment, do not commit adultery, speaks to the entirety of human sexuality and its purposes of faithfulness, intimacy, and joy. We live out our days, after all, not in black and white, but in technicolor, with countless options available to us. And our job as disciples is to make choices over and over that lead us toward life. Maybe that's what Moses was saying too. We're kidding ourselves if we think that life was any less morally complex for the ancient Israelites than it was for the early Christians, than it is for us today. Choose life or death, good or evil, well, of course, but that's never a clear-cut or one-time decision. And what if that's the point? What if Moses and Jesus both are not pointing to A or B, but to a whole realm of choices? What if it's not about two roads diverging in a yellow wood, but rather a great big open field with infinite directions we can go? Which path seems to lead us in the direction of what is good and joyful and life-giving? And which paths seem to direct us towards suffering, even death? Which brings us to these pesky little verses on divorce. Jesus tells his disciples, anyone who divorces their spouse, except on the grounds of unchastity, commits adultery. Well, as your divorced pastor, preaching to a congregation of people who have known their fair share of divorce, I have to tell you, this is one of those rare times when the words of Jesus actually seem pretty straightforward. Yikes. And yet, if Jesus has been teaching us that life is not black and white, then why would we go and apply a black and white paradigm to this, to marriage and divorce? We live in a space in between black and white, where all aspects of our human relationships are held up to the light and called into question. In what ways do our relationships, marital and otherwise, nourish life? And in what ways do they resign us to sadness or lead toward death? How do our connections to one another foster grace and love, allow humility and kindness to flourish? Or in what ways do our connections with one another squelch or suffocate our spirits? In any action, in any relationship, we, the faithful, ask these questions, and then we try to answer them honestly. Sometimes love abounds in a marriage. Sometimes it dies. Sometimes choosing life looks like staying in a relationship, and sometimes choosing life means letting a relationship come to an end. Sometimes choosing life means letting our yes be yes, and sometimes choosing life means letting our no be no. I have set before you two choices, Moses says, life and death, blessing and curse, prosperity and adversity. Things would be easier if it were only black and white. But we who follow Jesus have committed to follow him even into the gray. We who seek to live Christ's love in our daily lives will be faced with hard choices that don't always have one right answer. But friends, we who walk in the gray area do not walk alone. We live and move and have our being in Christ Jesus. We belong to and walk with our God. So let's keep choosing life and seeing what happens. The God who made heaven and earth has great things in store. Thanks be to God.